Hi guys, this is Emnol, and we are back with Hearts of Iron 4 and Death or Dishonor for our third playthrough. As promised, this is going to be a communist Yugoslavia. We'll just go into it. 1936, Yugoslavia, and then mode. There's an achievement quite similar to the Romanian one. We basically need to conquer bits and pieces of all of our neighbors. So we'll discuss that inside the game, actually. Alright, so, well, let's start with the achievement, actually. It's called very aptly Huge-oslavia. Great banter. So, as Yugoslavia, occupy all of your neighboring countries. Austria, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Italy, and Greece. So, basically, to do that, we need to stay non-aligned and we'll be able to conquer everyone, or we need to go communist and simply grab both Romania and I guess Bulgaria before the Soviets are able to do so. So this is gonna be our goal. Trying to conquer as much of the Balkans as possible, or as fast as possible, and then deal with the rest, because, well, we can get, for example, Austria just by defeating Germans, same for Italy and Albania. Now, what is our situation at the start? We have, as you can see, a whole set of national spirits, and they're mostly terrible. So we have a Croatian opposition, since, well, if you know anything about the history of Yugoslavia, you know that save for the period under the rule of Josif Broz Tito, it was a really disunified nation with a lot of internal tensions. Well, at this period, mostly due to the position that Serbia had, and that was well, it was a center of the country, and and many other nations felt taken advantage of, and those national spirits represent that. So we have Croatian oppositions that simply dips our national unity by whooping 30%. So basically, Belgrade falls, we are done. That's about it. Macedonian opposition is actually the worst. Increases the political power cost for, well, almost everything. So 187 here. This is actually 150, so that's okay. But and military high command. Well, as for those kinds of things, 187. Same for conscription laws. Same for, well, we don't care about that. But yeah. Thankfully, we are not really interested in buying any political advisors. There aren't any good ones, not really. So, I mean, Captain of Interest 3, if we were really so inclined, we could possibly take him very early on, but probably not the best idea, because we won't be building infrastructure for that long. But of course, we'll want to increase, to change our economy a lot to a better one. So removing that is fairly important. Same for Slovene nationalism, minus 10% production efficiency growth. It's not, well, awful. It's well, if that was minus 10% production efficiency, that would be catastrophic. But efficiency growth is well, survivable. And for the last one, we have general staff that is dominated by Serbians, rather than trying to take talent from the whole pool. And, well, our military leaders cost more, but, well, that's fairly irrelevant. And lastly, we have just an anti-German military that gives us ideology-drift defense, so pretty irrelevant. So those nationalism are one of our issues. The other one is the number of factories we are starting with. We start with three military factories. And I just mentioned that we kind of want to gobble up all of the Balkans. So yes, this is gonna be tough. So 3 factories and, well, 14 civilian ones, so at least we'll be able to build things up a little bit. But as far as ability to field an army goes, we are, well, probably the worst one, perhaps along with Hungarians, because they start with 6 factories, but they have trouble building them at least. So yeah, but we are in a pretty tough position as far as that goes. As for the army we're starting with, we have a very basic infantry division, but thankfully it has some support already, and you know, it's 3x3. Our mountain divisions are atrocious though. Cavalry divisions are way too big to be useful in the policing you know, to police everything as a garrison, so we need to deal with that at some point. And our armor divisions are a joke, so there's that. As for the research, before we go into focuses, we start with mountain troops, as we've seen. So, well, the ones we had, the thing that we have, the template, right? That was the word that we have, is useless, but yeah, mountain troops, good stuff. We do start with engineers, but sadly no motorized and no recon companies. Armor, terrible, no research whatsoever, just Great War tanks, so it would be fairly difficult. Well, basically we'll need to conquer Balkans without tanks and only get on them around the time we expect the war with Germany. We do, however, have some anti-tanks, so that's promising, at least for the start. We do start with superior firepower, so that's an edge of basically all the other Balkan nations that start with no doctrine whatsoever. So that's well, almost a year of research saved up, and I mean we'll stick to superior firepower. It's a reasonable one, a bit industry heavy. But at some point we will transfer from having industrial issues into having manpower issues. So yeah, it will be it will be helpful at some point. We actually do have some navy and well, but no transport ships, which may or may not be an issue if we try to conquer Turkey. So there is that. Nothing here. Absolutely terrible air tab. No, not even tactical bombers, just interwar fighters. Or, I mean, not even interwar bombers, there's the word fighters. Nothing air doctrine wise, and of course nothing here. We start with the standard stuff. So no point in, I don't know, rushing at doctrine quite yet. We really need to get our industry working. Now, as for the most important part, which is a focus tree, this is a political bit. As you can see, we can go straight for the communist bit, or we have to decide that we rather go focus on the West. And this whole Western tree, which is actually quite interesting, all the way up to here, is actually in the wind. Either we want to go, depending if we want to go with the Axis or with the Allies. It's only being decided here if we decide to invite German military mission or secure non-discriminating officer promotions to deal with the Serbian general staff. And this kind of choice about dealing with our national focuses is the main goal of this whole tree. So once we so this, for example, deals with Slovene nationalism one way or the other. This one actually, this one is actually quite powerful because it gives us an Orthodox Church support, which gives us whooping 0.25 political power per day, which is a very powerful thing. Basically, increases our political power gain from 0.5 to 0.75 by 50%. Yeah, or we can get additional national unity. Here we deal with Macedonian opposition, or well, refuse to deal with it and get some claims on Bulgaria. Here is it deals with the Croatia and with them, and as we discussed earlier, this is with the Serbian-dominated general staff. And additionally, if one chooses Greater Yugoslavia here, which means they do not deal with Macedonian opposition, they can get additional 1% recruitable population. But that's all irrelevant for us because we are going communist. So our way of dealing with all those nationalism and what not is simply to reach this and form a federal republic. And I think we'll just gonna do exactly that. Of course, as I mentioned, one of our issues is the fact that we do not have military factories to speak of. So getting to the developed military industry is another important problem on this tree. Because we, as I mentioned, we need to conquer quite a lot of Balkans before people start guaranteeing them and so on and so forth. And for that reason, we really need to rush becoming communist, so we can, well, even start doing the conquering, because being unaligned, we wouldn't be able to justify any war goals, and we are not getting at the war goals through that. Here we would have an option to either join Commintern or go our own path, and that leads to Pan-Slavic Worker Congress. But that doesn't work with what we aim to achieve in terms of that Huge-oslavia achievement, because, well, we need to actually conquer both Bulgaria and Albania rather than invite them to the parties, to our faction. So we'll just go with the Soviets. All right, and for that reason, we have to be greedy. We cannot just go for the military factories. We need to become communist ASAP. So we'll just go and recognize Soviet Union as soon as possible. Now, this, as you can see, there is not a very particularly impressive array of resources that we have to our disposal. No tungsten, no steel, and no oil, but hopefully we'll be able to get oil from Romania. Well, I think we'll simply need to go this way and buy a little bit of steel from Soviet Union, our prospective ally. As for the construction, if we take a look at this, there are a few provinces where improving our infrastructure would yield eventual good results. Which is Slovenia, because we'll be at least able to build five factories here. Morava, well, once we get some tax, we'll be able to also build 5. And even Serbia, where we'll be able to build enough of them, because we'll be going for improved Serbian railway network, which adds additional 2 building slots to Vojvodina, Montenegro, Serbia, and Morava, which are those, because once again, you need to build at least 5 factories for this whole investment in infrastructure to pay off. So we'll start by building some infrastructure here. Just remind me how many levels. We're getting 1 level, right? So we don't want to go above 9 in Vojvodina, Montenegro, Serbia, and Morava. So we'll go Serbia. Vojvodina has 2. Yes, this is probably not a good investment right there. Let's just go with Morava. There we go. of course, the other option would be to simply build military factories and ignore that, but that's even a single one would take half a year. So I definitely rather get some infrastructure going earlier. Alright, as for our dockyards, let's just build convoys, I guess. Although now, you know what, we won't need that much in terms of convoys because we will be able to. Well, okay, let's get some because we have 10 and that's ridiculous. But we should be mostly able to trade through land for quite a long time. So with that out of the way, let's get rolling. That being said, I'm actually quite tempted in getting at least one military factory out the door. Okay, this will finish in 27 days. Because well, that would increase our overall production by whooping 33%. Yeah, okay. Consider so the problem is that our army is nothing to write home about at all. We have 22 divisions, with quite a few of them being completely useless, and we should be able to defeat Bulgaria. Although even that is going to be a pain in the ass because there's a lot of mountains. But then there are mutual guarantees between, for example, Romania and Greece. So we'll need to go to war against both of those, which is also going to be a pain in the ass. So we need to start producing weapons fairly early. So okay, let's just build one factory in Vojvodina, since this one is this one will not we are not gonna invest in infrastructure there, so might as well do that. And well, sadly I think we'll need to invest in infantry equipment rather than rather than artillery for the time being. Yeah, we are pretty heavily in the red. That, well, same goes with artillery. Well, we'll decide later. Let's put an artillery into that. There we go. We do not have much in terms of manpower either, so there will be an... Alright, so we recognize the Soviet Union. Yugoslavia recognizes Soviet Union. Yugoslavia, even more stoically than other nations, has for years refused to recognize the communist state that is the Soviet Union. With today's announcement that the government of Yugoslavia will henceforth establish official relations with the Soviets, this policy has at last come to an end. Whether this means an opening of the Yugoslav state to the communist influence remains to be seen, but the tone of the announcement was surprisingly cordial. Alright, they do have some interesting ideas. So we need to get both of those. This is a mutual economic aid, which will give us 2 years of lower consumer goods, lower consumer good requirements. And for the service, that is going to be 1 year. But since, well, it's actually better to get it later, because now the amount of factories we have is nothing to write home about. So we'll just get Peasants' Council first and get the other one 70 days later, for it to have better effect once we have higher power. Higher amount of all of the factories. Alright, so Bulgaria was gonna be our first target. Although, for that, of course, we'll need to wait to become communist, then justify against them, yada yada yada. We don't have particularly great generals either. This one is an urban assault specialist, so I guess he could be fairly useful in fighting for Sofia, but I think just going with the thorough planner with additional max planning is a good way to go about it, because that's just 10% bonus across the board. We can't really produce any. Well, let's see. I guess we could produce some infantry. Okay, you know what? Let's just get that towed artillery. There we go. Mechanical engineering finished. So the problem with Bulgaria is that for them to fall, we have to get Sofia, and I think both what was it called, Prodliv and Varna here. I'm not 100% sure. I think just Sofia and one of those can suffice, but well, either way, this is pretty difficult to capture, and Sofia is in the mountains, so we'll have to basically push through either here or through the north, right there. It may be a shit show, especially without artillery on our side, so not the greatest thing. Alright, yeah, let's go for mechanical computing. Alright, we haven't actually looked into other parts, so this is of course political ones, this is industrial one, then we have Air Force, so we can either decide to purchase foreign licenses, and this way the cost of those licenses will go down by half. Problem is that the cost of every license is one civilian factory as of today, so you basically need to get 2 licenses from one guy for this to even take effect. So, but okay, and then we can have a a competition for international competition for bomber or fighter license, which will result in one free license for this kind of plane. Or we can go with local developers and try to actually develop our own. This one gives us a pretty nice air research bonus, and those are basically 1 military factory each. Here we get fighter, heavy bomber and tactical bomber research bonuses. Sadly no closer support, but well, this is almost exclusively various degrees of research bonuses. Some are quite interesting, like 75% here and there, but yeah, nothing to write home about. And this is a similar thing to that, 50% cheaper armor licenses. We will probably end up buying some licenses from Soviet Union, but yeah, this is pretty deep in the tree for it to be useful. And this is just ridiculous, because 5% conversion is like, I mean, your basic speed for conversion is 200 bonus, and there are researches that increase it by 80%, by 40% per research. So 5% is just a joke. So this is completely useless. Right, and here we can go with either we have 2 for mobile and superior firepower, or ground battle plan and mass assault doctrine. And we have towed artillery production cost by mighty 5%. I mean, it's good, but and this is naval that we don't care about. All right, back to the action, sort of. All right, form peasant councils. Now, to continue with the abolishment of the monarchy and joining Commintern, we sadly need to get the mutual economic aid first. How are we on the communist rise? Well, getting there. Basic machine tools, very well. You know what? So once again, we are gonna go for dispersed industry over concentrated one. And that 5% base is, in my opinion, more useful for basically all the nations except ones that start with a shitloads of factories from the get-go. So we are definitely not one of those. So dispersed industry it is. So basically, I value getting that before the research, and that's why I took those 30 days from there to basically speed it up by 30 days. All right. And here we are going back to this research. Spanish Civil War in July, so it's middle of the road end of event. We'll be struggling with political power without any bonuses to that end. So this is going to be quite annoying. There aren't any bonuses, right? Defense, military leader, nope. Okay, now we are gonna abolish the monarchy, which actually is not really going to abolish the monarchy, I believe. Not until we get the communist, well, the takeover, so to speak. But it adds additional 20%, 20 points of communist gains. So that should definitely speed things up. Go. Well, yeah, of course, only half in the middle of the year, so we'll need to, since we will be going to war fairly shortly, I think we'll just go with the weapons here for actual fighting improvements. Yeah, let's just go for it. Alright, you can set the location and be assigned to this. I think one at the time will do, considering we have no manpower. Right, how is this going? So we're already at 30%. Yeah, Regency Council is at 49. So by the end of the year, we should be fairly close to, well, especially with this bonus. At sometime beginning of the year, we should switch to communism, I think. And now, do we care enough to just join Commintern and rush Federal Republic? Simply to remove this Slovene nationalism? Or do we want factories? I think we do want factories first. Now when I think about it. So yes, we are just gonna rush factories and rush factories here. That production efficiency growth we can survive, I think. Yeah, that's enough for now, I'd say. Now we could well, basically pick general stuff, and I mean pick military theories, or just get something from general stuff, but not a big fan of our choices here, not really. Yes, division attrition, but if you are playing correctly, you're not gonna suffer enough attrition for this to even at any point warrant picking this guy, except when you have basically too much power. So it's kind of pointless. So basically the maneuver and I guess training division time, it's kind of shitty, probably even worse than the attrition one. Here we have army morale, division attack, division offense. In our case of having superior firepower doctrine, division attack is the way to go. But for Air Force we have some guy with ground attack, but yeah, but it's not the best thing ever. So yeah, there we go. We may simply pick the industrial company to speed those things up a little bit, at least. You are losing 5%, that's okay. Industrialization program, and which will allow us to get 2 researches of industry 10% faster, which is always nice. And well, resource gain efficiency. Okay. Now the question is, do we... Okay, let's pause, because we can 180, which means that we could switch to partial mobilization the moment we switch to the communism, which should come very closely. And I think we are going to do that. I don't think getting 10% industrial research time is worth here, especially because we have 2 actual research bonuses for it. Of 50%. No. I mean, construction is something we don't really have factories quite yet. I think what we are going to do is go for dispersed industry first, and factories with that one. And that one will go for the improved machine tools without the bonus. So what we want here is, I think, those next 3 factories probably all go into infantry equipment, because, well, we are missing a lot of it. As you can see, well, I guess we are also missing some artillery, so let's just split it. Although probably we'll need to grab some bloody tungsten too. Mechanical computing. Right, we are out of time though, so we'll get to actually building up our army and going to war against Bulgaria in the next episode. And we should by then see our new glorious leader, Josif Broz Tito. So, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you are enjoying it, and if you do, then there should be a widget kind of thing on the screen right about now that you can use to subscribe. And since this is the first episode, please leave a like if you're enjoying it. It allows people to find those things through the YouTube search interface. Cheers!